Hey guys, today it's all about troubleshooting your Fluval 07 canister filter. We've got a 307 here for you, and we're going to go through some of the things you got to look for, some of the problems you can have, and give you some tips and tricks to deal with it. So first up, filter hosing and poor filter flow. That's something that does happen every once in a while. People do comment, hey, my filter slowed down. Well, filter hosing is something that you need to pay attention to when you do your initial setup. So both the inlet and the outlet sides, you've got to make sure that you don't have a lot of excess hosing on the setup. You don't want to see any large loops of hosing lying about the cabinet. You want enough so that you can remove the filter from the cabinet to manipulate it, do your regular maintenance with, but not such an excess that you're going to actually have a lot of extra feet sitting around for nothing. So smooth, relatively direct path to the aquarium. Then there is the strainer on the inlet side or the siphon tube of your filter system. This can trap large bits of debris. Leaves, for example, or other types of structure could get stuck to the strainer. You want to make sure that you remove that on a regular basis. If you see a sudden drop in filter flow, always check the inlet side. We've done a filter video, by the way, or a maintenance video that does cover cleaning the strainer ball in here, the siphon ball, excuse me. That's part of the priming system. Please refer to that video and it'll show you how to do regular maintenance to keep that clean, because that is important as well. The flow is a little bit narrowed down at that point. You do have to apply regular maintenance to that to keep it flowing correctly. And last but not least is actual filter media maintenance. Now, your particular setup may have more fish, less fish. You may have more plants, less, more structure. You might feed more heavily depending on the types of fish you're keeping. All these things do affect the regularity of maintenance that you have to apply on a filter. Make sure to learn what your setup requires so that you do it on a regular basis, because otherwise you're going to have the filter slow down, you're going to have less oxygenation, less of the best filtration possible. So make sure to learn what your particular setup requires and maintain your filter media accordingly. Next up, particles that are flushed into your aquarium after you plug in your filter. Say you've done maintenance on the filter, you plug it up, and all of a sudden you see this kind of cloud of particles flood into your aquarium. It is possible that the ribbed hosing does accumulate some biofilm. That's normal. Any filter hosing will do that. And in order to avoid seeing the particles flood your tank, it's not bad for the aquarium. It will settle into the tank. It's not at all detrimental. But if you don't like that effect and you don't want that caught up in your filter media again, make sure that every 3 to 6 months that you're attaching this to a nice to a faucet, giving it a nice strong flush out to get rid of any particular biofilm or debris that might have settled within the ribs of the hosing. Another complaint we hear about once in a while is a kind of a rumbling or vibration noise. And when you think about it, there's only one moving part in your filter, that's the impeller. So let's get into that and have a look and see how to address that. Now, the impeller obviously is located underneath this impeller cover, so it just lifts right off. And then the impeller itself is easily removed. Maintenance is something that's important to do. You want to rinse this, clean it. We have a video showing that in maintenance as well. And of course, the impeller well's got to be cleaned out. But what can happen after a period of time, and usually, especially with our new 07 series impellers, it could be a couple of years down the line, but these can wear in the core. You got to replace the impeller. Let's face it, it's the only part that's moving in your canister filter system, and it runs 24/7. So replacing an impeller here and there over the lifetime of your filter is not exactly an unusual thing. And the reason you're hearing the noise is because if it is the impeller, in fact, that is worn in the core, there is a little bit of movement. You will hear that vibration. But like I said, with our new design, that's something that is going to be a relatively infrequent thing to have happen. We're pretty sure about that. So putting back the impeller cover, it's as simple. You just insert it in, click it in there, and that's it. So remember, keep the impeller clean, and if there is vibration, it may be time to replace it if it's been a couple of years that your filter's been running. If priming has been hard to accomplish, there are a couple of things that you got to look at. Now, first and foremost is making sure, as per your instruction manual, we do tell you that the top of the aquarium must be a maximum of 7 inches away from the water surface. Not 8, not 9, not 10, not 12. It's got to be a maximum of 7 inches or up higher than that, the water level. So make sure to pay attention to that. If it is a greater distance, it's going to be tougher to prime, and the filter's not going to operate as well as if you were within that range. Now, there's another thing that's very important too. You want to avoid trapped air as much as possible when you're priming your filter. And in order to do that, the output side of your filter, here's your output nozzle assembly. This should be slightly above the water surface while you prime. So you'll pump it 3 or 4 times. The priming will take place by the inlet only, and then push all the trapped air, or the great majority of it, out in one nice smooth motion in and out of the filter, or rather out of the filter. Once it's primed, then you just resubmerge the output just below the water surface, so you still get your good turbulence and oxygenation. Make sure to do that to avoid any problems with trapped air, because priming will become more difficult if you do have it. My filter is constantly emitting fine air bubbles into the aquarium. Well, that is something that we do hear from time to time, and there are a couple of main reasons why that can happen. We'll cover a couple of them right now. First off, if it's a marine aquarium you've got, if you're running a protein skimmer, make sure your protein skimmer does incorporate some kind of bubble trap, because if it doesn't, most protein skimmers will emit some fine bubbles into the tank. Can be really fine, but they do it constantly. You don't really notice it, and then what tends to happen is it accumulates in where? In your filter. That's basically grabbing everything in the tank. It accumulates it, and then every once in a while you have these gushes of air that get pushed into the aquarium. Well, that's because the filter's doing its job. The real source of the issue is the skimmer leaching those fine bubbles in the first place. So don't forget, marine tank guys who are using a canister filter, make sure that you employ a bubble trap for your protein skimmer. Now, another thing that can happen over time is the fact that the rubber connectors, we have them on the inlet and the output fixtures of our Fluval canister filters. This rubber can harden up over time. It's just the fact of this kind of compound underwater, and they are removable, they are replaceable. You can buy them as a spare part, and this can be a part that you may have to replace every year or two. It's a possibility. If you don't, the inlet you can normally get away with because the other hose is, you know, in the water, but your outlet, a lot of the times this might be, for example, right at the water surface, and this interface, if it's exposed to air, that's the part that can be a problem, because air could be actually drawn in, and at various times perhaps be an issue in getting blown into your tank and so forth. So that can be part of a factor as well. Don't forget, you can buy those rubber connectors as a spare part. My motor head is hard to install, and you know what, I have some leaks potentially at my motor head as well. Well, those are two common things or relatively common, that we're going to address in the same troubleshooting sequence. And basically that is a result of assembling your motor head and or positioning of the O-ring. Now let's get the motor head off here. You can see here, this one doesn't have an O-ring installed. There is a groove that goes around just beneath the light gray part of the filter. So what we're going to do is pop the O-ring in. What you do is make sure it's in that groove, and then you just follow it around and direct the O-ring into that groove. So there's where you've ended up with the O-ring installed. You do not want to be pushing the O-ring all the way to the bottom of this channel, and this we've seen on a number of occasions. That will guaranteed cause a leak. This is the O-ring receiving groove for the motor head. Now this O-ring has been pre-lubed, A325 Fluval silicone lubricant, indispensable product. Always make sure to put a little bit, massage it into the O-ring after you've cleaned out the groove, let's say for regular maintenance. Very, very important to do. So lubricate, make sure it's clean, make sure you position the O-ring correctly. You're not going to have any issues. Now, another thing that we did to take any possibilities of misaligning the motor head when you install it is on the 07 series, we have a much larger notch here. You can see where they have a model designation over here. It's a much larger piece. That, of course, this plug is made to go into that insert right there. And in the back, you'll see that there is an electrical boss here as well. This part here has been enlarged too to make it much more evident. So it's super easy to align. And there you go, filter head properly aligned. So that's it for our troubleshooting tips for the Fluval 07 canister filter line. We appreciate your watching. Don't forget to check out our other helpful videos on the 07 canister line as well. Don't forget to leave us a like, and thanks a lot for watching, guys.